It all began with a series of rather strange discoveries in Zimbabwe. From time to time, local people started coming across dead black mambas. There was something unusual about them. Their long bodies were almost completely intact, but their heads were missing. All kinds of stories began appearing in local social media groups. My son brought a dead snake in from the yard today. At first, I nearly lost my mind because it was a mamba. Then we noticed it didn't have a head at all. I have no idea what could have done that to it. In another area, someone came across the same disturbing scene far from any homes. I found a black mamba near the road this morning. The body was intact, but the head looked like it had been torn off. I've never seen anything like it before. A dead snake isn't exactly an unusual sight in Zimbabwe. Black mambas are native to the region, and encounters with them are fairly common. What was strange was something else. Something was clearly capable of taking down one of Africa's most dangerous snakes. And for some reason, it always left behind the same clue: a headless body. Now imagine holding this mamba in your hands and trying to tear its head off. It's much harder than you might think. Instead of a short neck, a snake has a long chain of connected vertebrae reinforced on all sides by powerful muscles and tendons. Ripping through all of that in a single motion takes more than simply getting a firm grip on the mamba. It requires far more strength than a human could generate. Once several headless snakes had turned up, everyone began wondering the same thing: what on earth was killing them? A black mamba isn't exactly easy prey. It's not going to sit there calmly while something bites its head off. For one thing, it's the longest venomous snake in Africa. Some grow to more than 13 feet long, and a mamba can move at around 12 miles per hour, about as fast as a person can run. Normally, when confronted, it tries to escape, but if there's nowhere to retreat, it attacks. The mamba raises the front of its body, opens its black mouth, and lunges forward. And it may not stop after a single bite. The snake can strike several times in rapid succession, injecting powerful venom with every hit. The venom, by the way, made the mystery of the severed heads even stranger. The attacker didn't just have to catch the mamba and physically overpower its long, muscular body. It had to get close enough to the snake's head, survive its attempt to bite, and seize it before the mamba could strike first. That meant we were looking for a rather unusual predator, one fast enough to take on a mamba, strong enough to rip off its head, and willing to risk repeated encounters with one of Africa's most dangerous snakes. You would think the list of possible suspects would be fairly short. The first candidate seemed obvious: African wild dogs. They're among the continent's most efficient predators. They live in packs, can reach the speed of a car, and hunt not only antelope, but even much larger animals such as wildebeest. Surely if any animal could surround a mamba, cut off its escape, and tear it apart, it would be them. But there was a problem. Wild dogs are extremely good at bringing down large prey, but they have no special protection against venom. In Namibia, scientists had to treat 3 young wild dogs after they were bitten by an unidentified venomous snake. The animals survived only because they were given anti-venom. And the snake they encountered wasn't even a black mamba. One mamba specialist described a case in which 4 domestic dogs attacked a single mamba. Defending itself, the snake bit every dog that came near. 2 died before the specialists arrived, and the other 2 died later. The mamba was also badly bitten and died a week afterward. So even a pack of dogs can defeat a mamba in a fight, but only at a very high cost, which meant that the predator, repeatedly leaving decapitated snakes behind, must have found some way to solve the main problem: getting close to the mamba's head without giving it a chance to bite back. But what animal actually knows how to kill snakes? The mongoose, of course. It fights exactly the way it should, trying to dodge the strike, move in from the side, and grab the snake by the back of the head, after which it can damage or break its spine. But it ran into trouble with the black mamba. That tactic usually works better on young or relatively small snakes. Not all the snakes they found fit that description. Next, they looked at the honey badger. This animal also hunts snakes regularly and is capable of ending the fight in an extremely brutal way by biting through the skull or literally tearing its prey apart. But this explanation didn't quite add up either. For a honey badger, ripping off the head isn't a necessary or particularly typical way to finish a hunt, so that theory had to be discarded, and the search continued. Gradually, a strange pattern began to emerge. Headless mambas were being found in different places, but several of them had been discovered near trees. Some of the bodies weren't even lying on the ground. They'd been left right there on the branches. A mongoose or honey badger would have no reason to drag a dead snake up into a tree. That meant they needed to look for a predator that was just as comfortable in the trees as it was on the ground. They decided to install cameras near one of these locations. A decapitated mamba had already been found on a branch there, and now all they had to do was wait and see who returned. While the cameras waited for their mysterious visitor, something else came to light. There was more at stake in finding the mamba's killer than simply solving the mystery. Snakes had long been a very real problem in Zimbabwe, and in recent years, encounters with them had become increasingly common. The country's home to dozens of snake species, including several that are deadly. The black mamba is one of them. Along with cobras, vipers, and several other species, these snakes regularly turn up near people. During the peak snake activity season, reports of encounters come in constantly. As far back as 2020, local authorities were reporting at least several call-outs every week. The most dangerous period usually lasts from around September through March. During this time, snakes move around more actively in search of food, and once the rains begin, they also start approaching human settlements. The reason's fairly simple. Homes provide water, shelter, garbage, and along with it, rats. To a snake, a yard like that is practically a luxury resort. It follows the rodents, crawls into piles of debris, sheds, and other outbuildings, and sometimes even enters the house itself, until eventually someone finds it. And then the whole street hears the screaming. But soon something changed. In 2024, Zimbabwe experienced an unusually hot and prolonged season. Snakes began appearing near people far more often than before. In just 1 week in January, 141 snake bites were recorded. Most of the incidents happened in rural areas, but the problem reached the cities as well. One resident of Bulawayo, the country's second largest city, said that snakes had suddenly started turning up virtually everywhere, and people were becoming afraid for their children. There was a certain logic behind the snake's behavior. Prolonged heat and drought alter the animal's usual habitats. Small prey moves on in search of food and water, and the snakes follow until sooner or later that trail leads them to farms, villages, and cities. And with the black mamba, the danger is especially real. You don't have to venture deep into the wilderness to find one. If there's suitable shelter and prey nearby, an encounter can happen much closer to people than you might expect. You see where I'm going with this? Somewhere nearby, there was clearly a predator that could not only survive an encounter with one of Africa's most dangerous snakes, but judging by the evidence, kill them again and again. Figuring out what was doing it and how it managed to overcome the mamba's deadliest weapon could provide far more than the answer to a strange mystery. Perhaps a natural enemy capable of helping people deal with the snakes was already living right there. All that remained was to wait for the camera footage. But while the search for the possible snake killer continued, one nest in Zimbabwe caught the researchers' attention. Inside were the remains of several snakes. There was no black mamba among them, but the prey looked suspiciously familiar. Most of the snakes had been decapitated before they were brought back to the nest. Now this was far more interesting. Of the 4 snake species the researchers were able to identify, 3 were venomous. The prey included a boomslang, a puff adder, and a black-necked spitting cobra. And the predator clearly wasn't targeting only small snakes, it was bringing large adults back to the nest as well. The puff adder alone weighed almost 1.6 pounds. The similarity was far too striking to dismiss as a coincidence. Somewhere in Zimbabwe, there was a predator that specialized in snakes, readily attacked venomous species, and tore off their heads before carrying them away. Only one question remained. Whose nest was it? It belonged to a brown snake eagle, a large bird of prey that feeds primarily on snakes. Most importantly, this eagle really does prey on adult black mambas. There have even been documented attacks on snakes measuring at least 9 feet long. For the first time in the entire investigation, a suspect matched several of the clues at once. Only one final theory remained to be tested. The cameras near the tree kept recording, and eventually the prime suspect appeared on screen, the brown snake eagle. Suddenly, all the strange discoveries fell into place. This bird seems almost purpose-built to hunt the kind of prey that most other predators would rather avoid altogether. The snake eagle spots its prey from above or from a high perch, then dives sharply and seizes the snake in its powerful talons. But what happens next is the most interesting part. It doesn't waste time wrestling with the snake's entire body. Its main target is the head. That strategy's all about safety. Even for a snake eagle, venom remains dangerous, so the bird tries to prevent the snake from striking back. It pins the prey down with its talons, strikes the back of the head, and may then crush the skull or tear the head off completely. Only after that does it calmly turn its attention to the rest of the carcass. And that was exactly the signature the researchers had been finding all along. The snake's body remained, but its most dangerous part, the head with the venomous fangs, was gone. The snake eagle doesn't limit itself to relatively harmless prey either. It's been observed attacking cobras, vipers, and other venomous snakes. And yes, as I mentioned earlier, black mambas are also on the menu, including adults around 8.9 to 9.2 feet long. In other words, the size of the snakes wasn't a problem. The final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. The predator lived in the same area, hunted snakes, targeted the head, and was capable of taking down adult mambas. But that raises another question. Why does a snake eagle bother taking the time to tear snakes' heads off? It's already caught its prey, pinned it down with its talons, and fatally injured it. You would think that would be more than enough. Turns out it isn't. When you're dealing with a venomous snake, being dead doesn't always mean being harmless. A case from Texas in 2018 illustrates this perfectly. A man was working in the yard with his wife when they spotted a rattlesnake roughly 3 feet long. He grabbed a shovel and cut off its head. The danger seemed to be over. The body lay in one place, the head in another. A short while later, the man bent down to remove the remains, and the severed head suddenly bit him on the hand. The consequences were so severe that he had to be airlifted to the hospital. He began suffering seizures, vision problems, and internal bleeding. Most snakebite victims require only a few doses of antivenom. He was given 26. During the first 24 hours, doctors weren't even sure he would survive. But fortunately, he pulled through. And this isn't some trick unique to rattlesnakes. Medical reports confirm that even a dead, decapitated venomous snake can still bite. The venom doesn't instantly disappear after death. It remains inside the venom glands, while residual nerve and muscle activity can still trigger movement of the jaws and cause a bite. In 2025, doctors described several cases of envenomation after contact with already dead snakes, including bites from severed cobra heads. The victims still required antivenom. For a brown snake eagle, this means that simply catching a mamba isn't enough. As long as the head, fangs, and venom are still nearby, the prey can still cause serious harm. That's why the bird tries to neutralize this part of the body first. The head is either struck repeatedly with the beak and talons, or torn off entirely and tossed somewhere far away, just to be safe. The reason for this extra caution becomes especially clear near the nest. A brown snake eagle usually raises just one chick, and during the early stages, most of the prey is brought in by the male, and he delivers it in a rather unusual way. Before returning to the nest, he begins swallowing the captured snake head first. By the time he arrives, almost the entire snake is already inside the eagle, with only the tip of its tail sticking out of his beak. And what happens next? Well, I hope you aren't eating right now. The female grabs the exposed tail and literally pulls the prey back out of the male's throat. She then tears the snake into small pieces and feeds them to the chick. Once the youngster grows a little bigger, it can do this on its own. It grabs the snake's tail sticking out of the parent's beak and begins pulling the prey free. By 5 or 6 weeks of age, a young snake eagle can swallow an entire snake about 3 feet long. When the chick's still very small, the parent will sometimes eat the snake's head first and only then give the rest of the body to the chick. And suddenly, those decapitated mambas looked completely different. This wasn't some strange side effect of the struggle or an act of pointless cruelty. For a bird that spends its entire life dealing with venomous snakes, the head's the most dangerous part of the prey. It has to be neutralized first. And when that prey still needs to be carried back to the nest and given to a helpless chick, there's no reason to take any unnecessary risks. That leaves perhaps the most obvious question of all. How can a brown snake eagle regularly hunt black mambas, cobras, and other venomous snakes in the first place? We've already seen that a single encounter like this can result in the deaths of several dogs, yet this bird deliberately drops down beside a mamba, grabs it, and repeatedly comes into contact with the very head that every sensible animal tries to avoid. Take a look at the brown snake eagle's legs. In many birds of prey, the lower legs are covered with feathers. A snake eagle's lower legs are bare, but they're protected by thick, rigid scales. These overlap one another and act like natural armor plates. When a captured snake twists around and tries to strike, its fangs pierce into this layer of dense armor rather than soft skin, As a result, the bird's most vulnerable body parts are at least partially protected during the fight. But the most important thing is that the snake eagle tries to prevent the mamba from using its fangs in the first place. It usually spots the snake from a tree or from the air, dives sharply from above, and locks its talons onto the area right behind the head. At the same time, its powerful feet pin the body to the ground and damage the spine, while the beak begins hammering at the head. The more accurate the initial grab, the fewer opportunities the snake has to turn around and strike back. That's why there's no time to waste. Seize the snake, secure the head, disable it, and only then start feeding. Look at how the balance of power works here. The mamba has venom, but for that venom to work, it first has to sink its fangs into its opponent's body. The brown snake eagle attacks from above using the part of its own body best adapted for exactly this kind of contact. Its talons serve as weapons while also keeping the dangerous head at a distance. But the bird's certainly not completely invulnerable. If the eagle misses or grabs the snake poorly, the snake may still be able to turn around and bite. Even scientists note that mistakes like these can result in injury or even death for the brown snake eagle. The scales provide extra protection from an accidental bite, but they don't make the bird immune to mamba venom. And honestly, that makes its hunting strategy even more impressive. The brown snake eagle doesn't defeat the mamba because it has somehow neutralized the snake's greatest weapon. Every time it faces a very real threat. It's just that over thousands of generations, these birds have evolved the right armor, powerful talons, and almost sniper-like precision. And there's another curious detail. A brown snake eagle can swallow a venomous snake whole without being poisoned by its venom. The reason is that snake venom is dangerous mainly when it enters the tissues and bloodstream through a bite. Inside the stomach, things work differently. Many of the venom's components are proteins, and digestive enzymes and stomach acid break them down much like the proteins in ordinary food. So once the mamba's dead and inside the eagle's stomach, it's no longer dangerous. It's simply a meal. So for most animals, the black mamba is an opponent best avoided. But for the brown snake eagle, it's a spicy dish the bird has mastered the art of eating. But if the brown snake eagle's so well adapted to hunting venomous snakes, couldn't people somehow use that to their advantage? Could birds like these actually solve the mamba problem? The more brown snake eagles live near people, the fewer snakes there should be in the area. The logic seems simple enough. And the most interesting part is that people have actually tested almost this exact idea before. In the early 19th century, Martinique had a snake problem of its own. The island was home to the Martinique lancehead, a large venomous snake found nowhere else. Encounters with it caused so much concern among local people that officials and naturalists began searching for an animal capable of keeping the snakes under control. Eventually, they settled on the secretary bird, a large African bird of prey that also specializes in hunting snakes. The plan seemed almost perfect. The secretary bird walks across the ground on long legs, spots a snake, and attacks it with a rapid series of powerful kicks. In old accounts, observers described the bird striking the snake's head, pinning it down with one foot, grabbing it near the back of the skull, and damaging the vertebrae in its neck. In other words, the bird didn't need an antidote. It solved the same problem as the brown snake eagle, making sure the dangerous head never got a proper chance to strike. That was why 2 secretary birds were brought from the Cape of Good Hope to Martinique. It seemed that all that remained was to release them, wait for them to breed, and give the island a new natural enemy of its dangerous snakes. But the experiment ended before it had really begun. One of the secretary birds died shortly after arriving. The other remained in the botanical garden in St. Pierre and was never released into the wild. No breeding population was ever established, which meant there would be no army of birds capable of making any noticeable difference to the island's snake population. In the end, the attempt failed. The introduced birds never managed to help people reduce the number of venomous snakes on Martinique. And that, perhaps, gives us the answer to Zimbabwe's biggest question: can these birds save the day? A single brown snake eagle really can kill a mamba. A pair of birds can kill several more, and if there's a nest nearby, the parents will keep bringing snakes back to it and will probably remove a fair number of dangerous individuals from the area over the course of a breeding season. For one particular patch of land, that can make a real difference. But being able to kill a mamba and being able to control the mamba population are 2 completely different things. For snake eagles to make a noticeable dent in snake numbers across a large area, there would need to be a lot of them. They need suitable hunting grounds, trees for nesting, enough prey, mates, and the ability to raise young successfully year after year. In other words, they need a whole range of conditions to fall into place. Besides, a snake eagle doesn't exist for the benefit of humans, and it isn't going to carry out an assigned mission like clear this village of mambas and become a hero. It hunts wherever conditions suit it and takes whatever prey it happens to find. Martinique once demonstrated this distinction very clearly. You can introduce an animal that's technically perfect at killing the particular snake you want gone. You can even watch it do exactly that with your own eyes. But if the predator fails to establish itself and reproduce, the problem remains exactly where it was. So brown snake eagles may never eliminate black mambas from Zimbabwe, but no one expects them to. By regularly hunting snakes, they're already helping control their numbers naturally. Unfortunately, the headless mambas that started this investigation were not a sign that the problem was disappearing. But they were a sign that nature was working exactly as it should. See you later.